Operating thrust reversers at low ground speeds can sometimes cause sand or other foreign object ingestion, hot gas re-ingestion, or compressor stalls. All of the following are recommended markers for a reciprocating engine exhaust system except a lead pencil. The lead pencil mark can change the molecular makeup, carbon absorbed, of the metal after being subjected to high temperatures. This will harden the material and cracks will likely appear. Why is high nickel chromium steel used in many exhaust systems? Its corrosion resistance and low expansion coefficient. High corrosion resistance is a very important quality in the exhaust system components. The low expansion helps keep parts from warping and fitted components from leaking. What is the purpose of an exhaust outlet guard on a small reciprocating engine? To prevent dislodged muffler baffles from obstructing the muffler outlet. A dislodged baffle can close off the exhaust outlet, which will lower the power or even stop the engine. The outlet guard is to prevent the baffles from becoming an obstruction. Compared to normally aspirated engines, turbocharged engine exhaust systems will operate at higher temperatures and higher pressures. The exhaust system can operate at much higher pressures than ambient because of the ability of the turbo compressor to provide extra air, a heavier charge of air. The temperatures will also be higher. Ball joints in reciprocating engine exhaust systems should be loose enough to permit some movement. At normal room temperatures, the ball joints are made to have movement because at operating temperatures, they provide for expansion and engine movement. How are combustion liner walls cooled in a gas turbine engine? By the pattern of holes and louvers cut in the diffuser section. The combustion liner has a set of holes and louvers that direct secondary air to flow across the surface to prevent the liner from burning. The purpose of cascade vanes in a thrust reversing system is to turn to a forward direction the fan and or hot exhaust gases that have been blocked from exiting through the exhaust nozzle. Cascade vanes help turn the fan air in a forward direction. The vanes are a series of turning vanes which direct the air to slow the aircraft. Which statement is generally true regarding thrust reverser systems? It is possible to move some aircraft backward on the ground using reverse thrust. The practice of powering back can be used, but there is a risk of problems such as FOD ingestion and compressor stall. Most of the time, this requires all engines to be started and used for the powering back. What is the proper operating sequence when using thrust reversers to slow an aircraft after landing? Retard thrust levers to ground idle, raise thrust reverser levers as required, and retard thrust reverser levers to ground idle. The thrust reverser levers will not actuate until the power levers are at idle, so the power levers must be at idle. Then the reverser levers can be activated as needed, although there are some restrictions. Repair of exhaust system components is not recommended to be accomplished in the field. Field repair of exhaust components by welding of cracks is generally not recommended because of the type of materials required and possible contamination of the welded repairs. Also, exhaust components sometimes require fixtures for alignment during repairs. Reciprocating engine exhaust system designs commonly used to provide for ease of installation and or allow for expansion and contraction may include the use of spring-loaded ball flexible joints, slip joints, and or bellows. Flexible metal tubing is not used due to the alignment and strength problems. One source commonly used for carburetor air heat is exhaust gases. The source of the heat is exhaust gases flowing through the muffler. Carburetor heat air flows over the muffler where it is heated and then flows to the carburetor heat box. Then it is directed either away from or into the carburetor of the engine. A hot section of a turbine engine is particularly susceptible to which of the following kinds of damage? Cracking. The hot section of the engine is most susceptible to cracking because of the high temperatures, thermal cycles, centrifugal forces, aerodynamic, and mechanical loads. What is the purpose of a slip joint in an exhaust collector ring? It aids in alignment and absorbs expansion. Alignment is very important to an exhaust system to prevent distress to the components. The system must have room for expansion or the components will warp and buckle. Dislodged internal muffler baffles on a small reciprocating engine may obstruct the muffler outlet and cause excessive exhaust back pressure. An exhaust restriction is a serious problem because it can cause engine power loss or failure. What types of nuts are used to hold an exhaust system to the cylinders? Brass or heat-treated nuts. Brass or heat-treated nuts should be used on the exhaust studs on the cylinder because of the high temperatures they will be subjected to. On turbojet-powered airplanes, thrust reversers are capable of producing between 35 to 50% of the rated thrust in the reverse direction. Generally, turbojet aircraft can produce at least 35 to 50% thrust in the reverse direction. On an aircraft that utilizes an exhaust heat exchanger as a source of cabin heat, how should the exhaust system be inspected? With the heater air shroud removed. The cracks cannot be detected without removal of the heat shroud, which allows clear view of the muffler. Since the cabin heat is taken from around the muffler, no cracks are allowed. Sodium-filled valves are advantages to an aviation engine because they dissipate heat well. Sodium-filled valves transfer the heat of combustion away from the valve head into the valve stem and through the guide. How should ceramic-coated exhaust components be cleaned? By degreasing. Ceramic-coated exhaust components should be cleaned by degreasing only. Power recovery turbines used on some reciprocating engines are driven by the velocity of the exhaust gases. On some older model radial engines, power recovery turbines used exhaust gas to recover some energy from the exhaust gases. This energy was then recovered by the engine. How do the turbines, which are given by the exhaust gases of a turbo compound engine, contribute to total engine power output? By driving the crankshaft through suitable couplings. The power recovery turbine energy is recovered by a turbine turned by exhaust gases and fluid coupling to the crankshaft. Select a characteristic of a good weld on an exhaust stack. The weld should taper off smoothly into the base metal. The weld tapering off smoothly shows that the weld was not a cold weld, which results in a weak weld. A strong weld should flow into the base metal, the resulting appearance of a smooth taper. Which of the following indicates that a combustion chamber of a jet engine is not operating properly? Hot spots on the tail cone. Hot spots on the tail cone of a turbine engine are normally caused by uneven burning of the engine. Many times this is due to the malfunction of a combustion chamber. How should corrosion-resistant steel parts, such as exhaust collectors, be blast cleaned? Use sand that has not previously been used on iron or steel. When cleaning corrosion-resistant steel parts with an abrasive blast, it is important that the abrasive media does not have any steel or regular iron in it. Particles of steel or iron could become embedded in the corrosion-resistant steel, leading to failure of the part. Most exhaust system failures result from the thermal fatigue cracking in the areas of stress concentration. This condition is usually caused by the high temperatures at which the exhaust system operates. Many exhaust system failures are the result of thermal fatigue cracking in areas of stress concentration. This cracking is due to the high temperature range the exhaust is subjected to. Thrust reversers utilizing a pneumatic actuating system usually receive operating pressure from the engine bleed air system. Engine compressor bleed air is the most common system used on turbine aircraft to operate thrust reversers. Turbojet and turbofan thrust reverser systems are generally powered by electricity, hydraulic pressure, and pneumatic pressure. Engine compressor bleed air is the most common system used on turbine aircraft to operate thrust reversers. However, hydraulic and electrical driven reversers are also used. Reciprocating engine exhaust systems that have repairs or sloppy weld beads which protrude internally are unacceptable because they cause local hotspots. Welds on exhaust system repairs that protrude into the exhaust are unacceptable because they can cause local hotspots and restrict the flow of gases. Augmenter tubes are part of which reciprocating engine system? Exhaust. Augmenter tubes are part of the aircraft exhaust system. Augmenter systems draw additional air over the engine by creating a low pressure inside the cowling that draws air through the engine. This low pressure is created by the air flowing through the augmenter's tubes. How may reciprocating engine exhaust system leaks be detected? Signs of exhaust soot inside cowling and on adjacent components. The presence of exhaust gas soot inside the cowling or on adjacent components to the exhaust system is a good sign that exhaust leaks are present. A careful visual inspection of the exhaust system should be conducted. Engines using cold stream or both cold and hot stream reversing includes high bypass turbofans. High bypass turbofan engines may use hot stream or cold stream reverse systems. Some engines may implement both systems. The rearward thrust capability of an engine with a thrust reverser system deployed is less than its forward capability. Thrust reversers normally produce 40 to 50% of their forward thrust capability. Why is the failure of an exhaust system considered a severe hazard? The entry of carbon monoxide into the cabin can be fatal. There is a loss of power and there is a possibility of a fire. What should not be used to mark exhaust system components? Lead, zinc, graphite marks should be avoided. Why should lead, zinc, or graphite marks not be made on exhaust systems? They can cause a change in molecular structure when heated and will cause cracks. How are exhaust system internal baffles or diffusers inspected? Disassemble the components for visual inspection as necessary. What can be the result of exhaust gas leaking into the induction system? A loss of power and possible detonation in the cylinder. The air has less oxygen to burn, resulting in a richer mixture. The temperature of the air in the induction system can cause the fuel-air mixture to ignite permanently. Where are coke or carbon deposits likely to build up in a turbocharger system? Around the wastegate and its control rods. What is the purpose of the thrust reverser system on a jet aircraft? They aid in decelerating the aircraft after landing.